The Tennessee Titans have added the missing piece to their defense. And I believe, man, that the Tennessee Titans are really, truly a sneaky playoff contender in 2024. When you think about the Tennessee Titans and what they've been able to accomplish this offseason to surround young wild card quarterback Will Levis with talent, they've added to the perimeter of the offense and the defense. They added Calvin Ridley. They already had DeAndre Hopkins. They added Tyler Boyd. They added Tony Pollard. They got better on the offensive line. They changed their coaching staff to be more offensively influenced. Both Callahan's coming in, especially helping the offensive line. Then you look at the defense. They added L'Jarius Sneed. They got better at safety. They added Chidobe Awuzie. And now they fill, in my opinion, the worst position on their entire football team, which was the linebacker position, with a player that I believe is a top 10 linebacker in the NFL. Yeah, that might be crazy, but I believe that Ernest Jones is one of the NFL's most underrated players. I am absolutely puzzled as to why the Los Angeles Rams decided to move on from the linebacker that led all off-ball linebackers in pressures during the 2023 NFL season. The Tennessee Titans are getting an impactful off-ball linebacker that can impact the game against the run, that is a dimension to your pass rush, winning one-on-one blocks against interior linemen, running backs, tight ends, whatever it may be, and he can really get after the quarterback. Last season, Ernest Jones really took that next step as the leader, as the captain of the middle of the defense for the Los Angeles Rams. And he was the one, along with Aaron Donald, that elevated, I feel, this unit that was pretty underwhelming from a talent standpoint. The Los Angeles Rams defense elevated it to something respectable, elevated it to something that was actually playoff worthy. Now, I think this is going to be a huge addition for the Titans, but I also feel it's a huge loss for the Rams. I don't really know what happened here. This was a very quick situation. It turned around very quickly. I'm not exactly sure why the Rams decided to get rid of a player that's in his prime, a player that is going to help Matthew Stafford at the end of his career win, a player that is a leader on his side of the ball, a player that gives you multi-layers to your defense. I just don't understand. Now, maybe they're switching the schemes. Maybe they're switching up the way that the defense is going to operate in 2024 in Los Angeles, because now they're going from Raheem Morris to Chris Shula as the defensive coordinator. Maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe Ernest Jones just was flat out not happy with his contract situation. I don't exactly know. But the trade is a 6th round pick in 2026 and Ernest Jones for a 2026 5th round pick. The Titans pull off another robbery of a trade this offseason. Another robbery, guys. Just going over his stats from last year, he led all linebackers in pressures with 33 pressures from the linebacker position. That's according to PFF. Also, according to PFF, he was the 8th highest graded linebacker with an 82.1 grade. He allowed the 23rd best passer rating in coverage at 90.3. He had 5 sacks on the season, which ranked 5th among all off-ball linebackers. He was top 15 in tackles, top 20 in stops. I mean, there's no way you can slice it and not put him at least in the top 20 linebackers in the NFL. I think he's closer to the top 10. He's only 24, 25 years old. I think he's 25 this year. So he turns 25 in November. November 22nd, he turns 25 years old. So he's in the prime of his career. He's a Super Bowl champ that's played in the playoffs a couple of different times. He's played in the Super Bowl. He's been the starting linebacker or one of the starting linebackers in Los Angeles for the past 3 years. So I don't get this trade. Like, this trade is really, really puzzling to me. I think this significantly hurts the Rams. Significantly. Because I don't really know who's going to fulfill his duty, his role. And I think this really catapults the Titans into potentially me, like, thinking about them in the wild card race. Because I thought the Titans before this trade legitimately had the worst linebacker position in the NFL. I mean, they signed like Kenneth Murray and guys that like they lost Al-Shaair last season, who's fantastic, to the Texans. I think if they get good, productive quarterback play out of Will Levis, this team has the pieces to actually be one of the shocking teams of 2024. I do truly believe that. So I don't get it, man. I really don't get it. This is a terrible trade for the Rams, as D says in the chat. We got Ali saying, tighten up. We got Cool with the Titan swords. We got Troy Reader Pro Bowl season incoming, dumb trade. Troy Reader's not a bad player. Go do your homework on Spites. Okay, sure. We can look. This is the thing about Rams fans, bro. I'm not hating. I like the Rams. I just don't get it. You guys like continuously ask the youngest players with no experience to step up and be ballers for you. You already lost Aaron Donald, and now you lose probably your second best defensive player in Ernest Jones. Like, really? I just don't get it. Like, with the timeline of the team, Cooper Kupp, he's older. Matthew Stafford, he's older. I don't really understand. Like, I thought before the Rams were going to be kind of a pretty interesting wild card team. I'm not necessarily saying this completely eliminates them from that playoff conversation, but it's just weird. It's just weird. It doesn't really make sense to me. Knee is banged up. Good luck, though. Hope he delivers for the Titans. I haven't heard anything about his knee. He did play 15 games last year. He has never missed more than 2 games in a season. Again, I don't know. Tone says we are the best drafting team by far. I think you're referring to the Rams. I don't really know who they've drafted high in the draft. I know that they've drafted some great gems over the past few years. I think their roster is solid. I don't think it's fantastic. I think a lot of their roster talent comes from the coaching and Sean McVay and the elevation from the quarterback and Stafford. I think if they had an average quarterback and an average coach, this would not be viewed as the same type of roster, in my opinion. I have major questions about the defense. I don't think the defense is very good. I think the offense is very good. I think the offense is excellent. I'm going to be drafting all their players in fantasy, but the defense, just to me, I just don't see it. I think that they're young. They need time to grow. There's a couple players that are ballers, but I don't know, man. Like, the defense wasn't very good last year. It's probably the reason they lost the Lions in the playoffs. I don't know. Put $100 on the Titans for the Super Bowl. I don't know about all that, but I do think the Titans will be a lot better than last year. They just have so much more talent than last year. He was going to walk in free agency. At least they got a pick swap for him. I would say, though, honestly, like at this point with Stafford at his age, I'd rather have Jones on for a year. That's just my philosophy, in my opinion. I would rather have Ernest Jones on my team for a season and let him go for free with Matthew Stafford than, get a 6th round swap. That's just me. Maybe he absolutely was done with the team and did not want to go there, but I don't know. They lost the Lions because they sucked. I don't know about that. Their offense is pretty good. They ripped up the Lions defense. They just couldn't get any stops. I don't think the Titans... I view the Titans... I think the Texans are one of the best teams in the league this year. I think they're going to be awesome. So I think the Texans are going to win the division. But I think the Tennessee Titans are going to be right there in the wild card conversation. The Rams offense is going to be one of the best in the league, but their defense could be one of the worst. I agree with that. David says the Rams are toast. They have self-inflicted the mortal blow to their season. Congrats to Sean McVay, Les Snead, and Stan Kroenke. It's a formidable pile of deal that kills the team, and they executed their own kill shot. Love that comment. Texans were not one-hit wonders. We'll find out soon. But you look at the Titans now, so you got Harold Landry on the edge. You've got Simmons up front at D tackle. You've got Ernest Jones at linebacker. You've got L'Jarius on one side. You've got Chidobe Awuzie on another side, Roger McCreary, extremely underrated nickel corner. Like, I just think that fills a major hole for them, like a major hole for them. I do still have concerns about the Titans in terms of their defensive line, like their interior defensive line. I still have concerns about maybe like not really as much safety after they signed Quandre Diggs. I'm not sure if he's going to be the same player he was like a couple years ago, but I feel like that was kind of a nice floor addition for their secondary. It definitely upgrades their free safety position. They've got a new look scheme under Denard Wilson, so that will be interesting to watch. But I think Jones is just going to bring, like, with the simulated pressure looks, he allows you to have another guy that can contribute as a pass rusher. He is solid in coverage. He's very smart. I think he's good. You know, the Rams typically, they were more about like having a lot of two safeties deep over the last few years, allowing their defensive line to go to work, stop the run. Ernest Jones was very important in their run fits as well, you know, filling in those gaps, coming down and playing the run as well. I'm not exactly sure if that's the role that he'll be playing here in Tennessee, but it's going to be interesting as new coordinator. So we'll see. I don't know about Sweat as a rookie, like big nose tackle. I wasn't a huge fan of him in the draft, but he could be good. I don't think Sebastian Joseph Day has been very good the last couple of years. He was a former Ram. Like, I think they're very thin on the D line. I don't really know about their backups as much. I like Landry. I like Arden Key. I think he is more of a third edge rusher, ideally, though. Like, I still feel like their front seven is a little thin. Cedric Gray could be interesting as a rookie. Jack Gibbons is not bad, but I feel like Ernest Jones is just a huge upgrade. He gives them another really high-end player to complement Harold Landry and Jeff Simmons. And I feel like with those three players in your front seven, the other guys can simply just play their role because those are the three studs that you need, right? They also brought in Kenneth Murray, who I don't think's ever been very good in the NFL. That's just my opinion. But I do think the secondary is very strong. I think they released their former first-round pick, Caleb Farley, today. But I think, you know, they got Amani Hooker, Quandre Diggs, L'Jarius Sneed, Roger McCreary, Chidobe Awuzie. Elijah Molden is a player that I've always liked. Trey Avery has played some games. Like, they've got decent quality depth there. So I think they're with their offense potentially being pretty fun and explosive, maybe a little inconsistent due to Will Levis, but I feel like with those receivers they have, Calvin Ridley, I think, is going to have a huge season with his first season in Tennessee. I love what I'm seeing out of Tony Pollard in the preseason. Tajay Spears is a running back I really like. The offensive line upgraded with J.C. Latham and Lloyd Cushenberry. Cushenberry has been a very underrated addition, in my opinion. Obviously, offensive line coach as well from the Browns, that I think was a huge addition. So you just look at the Titans. I think they're very, very underrated as an overall football team. I think it kind of comes down to Will Levis, and it kind of comes down to Brian Callahan as a first-time head coach. We don't exactly know how good Brian Callahan will be as a first-time head coach. But what I will say is usually you don't make a trade like this unless you think you're going to be good. Like, that's the thing I'll say about the Titans. It just gives me more confidence about the Titans, the fact that they believe they're already there. Like, they think they're one or two pieces away from being a very solid team this year. So that gives me a lot of confidence that they were actually willing to go out there and make a move for somebody like Ernest Jones. And the fact is, he's 25 years old. He's 25 years old. So even if you sign him to a 3 or 4 year contract, that's going to put him at 28 or 29 years old. That is a perfect like length or period of time that you want your linebacker on your team. And then after that, he'll probably move on as a veteran linebacker and find another home, or maybe stick around on a 1 or 2 year deal after that. But if you sign him to a 3 or 4 year contract, you're looking at his 25, 26, 27, 28-year-old type of seasons, which is like right in his prime of his career. So, and he's been a good player. He's been an ascending player in the first 3 seasons of his NFL career. You know, starting on that Super Bowl defense in 2021, he had 2 interceptions that season. And then the last 2 seasons he's had, you know, he went from 61 to 114 to 145 tackles. He went from 1 sack to 4.5 sacks. I think that's the best area of his game, in my opinion, is his pass rushing. I'm just going to look a little bit deeper at some of maybe his grades and stuff like that. I'll get back to the chat here. You see. Pollard won me a lot of money last year. Oh, really? Fantasy? Tony Pollard's a great back. I don't think he played well last year. Like, he had a ton of volume, but he wasn't really that good last year. I think that it took him some time to recover from the Achilles, though. So I think he's going to be much better this year in terms of just his quality overall. So yeah, he saw a significant jump in, like, if you guys care about it, like his PFF grades. Some people care about it, some people don't. But he went from 59 to 63 all the way up to 82 in his third season, which makes sense. He also had a 90 run defense grade, which was probably one of the best in the league. The year before, he had a 78 run defense grade. So he's been a good run defender. His limited, he has probably, like, I would say his weakness, if you had to categorize it, I think his strength is pressuring the quarterback and blitzing. I think that his weakness is probably his coverage. And then I think his run defense is probably like the core of his game. If I had to categorize it into like different areas of his game, that's what I would say. What else we got in here? King Phoenix in the chat. Snapping for Tay is in the chat. LW is in the chat. Top 10 linebacker. I agree. David, he's all about Los Angeles Rams gift wrapping the division. I don't think the Rams were going to win the division regardless. I don't think they really had much of a chance, to be honest. Like, maybe as a dark horse. I think the Niners are pretty easily the best team in that division, unless they see significant injuries. But I did think the Rams would be a pretty comfortable playoff team. And now that they lose a core piece to their defense, it definitely has me wondering about, like, what they're doing exactly. I don't know. Do you agree that Matthew Stafford is the best quarterback in the NFC? Yes. What? Because you got what? Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, and Burrow, and Stroud, and Herbert. Those guys are all AFC. And those guys would be the other ones that I'd put in the top 7. I think that Stafford would be around 6 or 7 on my quarterback ranking. So I would say that he's the best quarterback in the NFC. I'd say after that, it's probably Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott. Those guys are probably right after Stafford. Jalen Hurts, maybe, depending on how he's playing at the moment. Why would we make this trade? Says Dan Boy. I don't really know. I'm trying to figure that out myself. I think that it has to do with money. I think it has to do with an unwillingness to pay him. I think it has to do with potentially a scheme change if that is taking place. Maybe they feel like the money will be better utilized elsewhere. I don't know, man. I really don't know. Maybe they just are getting borderline cocky on their ability to draft this player. I don't know. Overrated. He's not a top 20 middle linebacker. Funny that Rams fans will say that after they traded him. I remember being there, guys. Am I wrong that young defenses? I actually thought, I don't know, this is just off the top of my head, but I remember Ernest Jones playing pretty well against the Lions. Am I crazy? I want to say he at least like had a couple big plays in that game. I think he had a sack, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to look this up, bro. Obviously, I don't have the tape in front of me, but we can look at stats. I want to see if this guy's right. So he had 2 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 1 tackle for loss. That sounds like he played terrible. Sounds like he played terrible, bro. The average fan says, am I wrong that young defenses tend to be cheap and at least average? I would say you're probably wrong. I would say that you need a good mix of youth and experience. I think you need players that, I think, especially at middle linebacker, have experience. I think it takes a long time to grow at the linebacker position because you have to deal with the run, the pass, the play action, the motions. You have to deal with all that different type of stuff that offenses like Kyle Shanahan are throwing at you, like Sean McVay are throwing at you, like Ben Johnson's throwing at you. You have to be able to have experience in those areas, right? I would say that there are certain positions that you can be young and be successful, like edge rusher, right? You're just trying to get after the quarterback or you're setting the edge. I think some corners can have success depending on their techniques. I think safety is more a position like linebacker where you have to have a little bit of experience. I would say if you're up front, it's probably better to be young if you're on the D line. If you're closer to the back end, I would say though corner is iffy because corner is generally inconsistent as it is, and the ability to move and run is really important. So I don't necessarily feel like age is a factor, more so like wear and tear on your body is a factor, I would say overall. Yeah, well, I don't know. I remember watching that game and he stood out in a big way. Again, forced fumble, which was maybe their only significant defensive play, 2 sacks. I'm not exactly sure what PFF is smoking there about that game, but I would say that the defense in general did not play well. They got shredded pretty good in that game. Let me see. So again, he was graded 13th by PFF last year. He was 6th in pass rush, 7th in run defense, 13th overall. He is weaker in coverage, as I brought up, right? 54th out of 77 in terms of his grading. It doesn't necessarily mean much. You got to utilize, every stat. I would just utilize this as one stat. But his strength is definitely playing downhill. There's no question about that. I'm trying to see if I can find this game against Detroit. I just like looking at this. So yeah, he had a really good pass rushing grade, and then he had a really bad coverage grade and a pretty weak overall grade because of the coverage grade. So, let me see. This was just one game. But also, like, if you think about it, the responsibilities in the middle of the field against Detroit, you're playing against Sam Laporta, and you're playing against Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I don't necessarily know how many linebackers would be great in that responsibility. The Lions weren't very good on defense last season, and the Rams' offense is better than Detroit's was. I don't know about that. Detroit's offense last year was a machine. Their offensive line was insanely good. They could run the ball on anybody, as we saw in the playoffs. Their offense is really well coordinated. Jared Goff played well. They've got 2 elite players, maybe 3, right? If Gibbs takes a step, Laporta, St. Brown. The Rams offense is very good. I don't question that. I just feel like the Lions defense as well was elite against the run. So that's an area that the Rams don't have an elite area of their defense. The Lions have been very, very good against the run. The Rams, I would say, like, what is the elite area? Without Donald, I would not say it's their pass rush, despite, Turner and Young and that. I think it will be fine. I don't think it will be bad. I think their secondary is kind of an iffy. They could be good. I think, I don't know, man. Like, I just don't see a lot of upper echelon talent on their defense. I think that we're going to see if Turner can continue to be a stud without Donald there, because so much attention goes to Aaron Donald, right? I feel like Jared Verse is going to be a good player, but he's a rookie, right? So, like, is he going to be an absolute stud right off the bat? I'm not sure. This wasn't the best edge rushing class that we've ever seen, so I wouldn't expect him to be Nick Bosa in year 1. Byron Young's a good player. I have questions about their linebackers for sure. Now that Ernest Jones is gone, I kind of did before, to be honest. Their corners, Darius Williams is more of a number 2 than a number 1. Tre'Davious White's coming off major surgeries. Cameron Curl is solid, very solid to good player. John Johnson has been good in this defense before, but he is a little bit older. Quentin Lake is kind of underrated. I think they've got kind of like good depth at corner, but I don't necessarily see a number 1 true Jalen Ramsey type of corner on their team. So I just question the studs. I question the studs on their defense. I think they've got quality role players and quality good players that are young, but I don't think they have a lot of studs. I would say the opposite is true for the Titans. I think the Titans have maybe weaker depth, but they have more studs. They've got L'Jarius Sneed, who's a top 5 corner in the league. They've got now Ernest Jones at linebacker. They've got Jeff Simmons, who's a top 10 D tackle. They've got Harold Landry, who's a very good edge rusher. And you even look at like Roger McCreary is an excellent nickel corner. So they've got kind of like pieces across their defense, sort of like what the Rams used to be, where the Rams defense used to be, okay, we've got Donald, we've got whatever, like Ramsey, we've got a couple like studs all over our defense. We kind of manufacture our defense around that. Before that, you know, they had like Talib and stuff like that. Eric Weddle. Was it Eric Weddle? I think at one point. They had Von Miller for a brief period. So they kind of would find like studs whenever they could get them and kind of manufacture the defense around it. But it's interesting. All right. That's it, guys. I'm going to end it here. I think this is a massive loss for the Rams. I think this really hurts their defense from a communication standpoint, from an overall ability standpoint at linebacker. I question their defense entering 2024. I think this is a huge addition for the Titans, taking what I thought was the worst linebacker depth chart in the NFL and elevating it. And I think the Titans are a sneaky dark horse to make the AFC playoffs. I don't think a lot of people are viewing them that way. I think the Rams, this definitely hurts them. I don't necessarily know how much until we actually see it. I don't view them as a competitor to win their division unless the Niners have significant injuries, but I do think the Rams will be right there in the wild card race. So we'll see. This is a puzzling move for the Rams, in my opinion. I think it's a huge move for the Titans. It's been Mitch. If you enjoyed this live stream, make sure to follow me here on the BR app for more live streams. I'll actually be back pretty soon talking about the top 10 free agents still available for your team to pick up. Also, you can subscribe on YouTube, The Bottom Line View, where I cover all 32 NFL teams. I rank like every position. I pick every game, all that stuff. So if you want to subscribe over there, you can subscribe as well. Thanks, guys, for watching. It's Mitch. Peace.